All right, why don't we go ahead and call tonight's work session to order. Our first item is wastewater rate update. Turner?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're here tonight with another wastewater rate update.
Sort of the microphone, please.
And Steve Donovan's put a slideshow together for you. And if you have any questions, I'll be here and here to help answer. And what you need. It's a show.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. Nice to see you again. This is an update from more than a year ago. We presented our last base case to you, and we're going to now update. A lot has changed in a year. Go ahead, Phil. So first, we'll talk about the rate projections and the rate profile, all with respect to the percent changes is what we're really going to be talking about. We're still at about a 10,000 foot level in terms of looking at it. What has happened since last fall? We were here to talk to you, and we were kind of worried. Costs were going up, and we didn't really understand the plan that well. But now things have definitely turned to a clearer picture. You've got a no plan amendment that I'm sure you've shared with staff, and that has changed the capital, not only the phasing but the projects and the timing of the projects. We'll talk about next steps and then conclusions, and we'll get out of your hair. Thank you. So, just to give you a timeline of, remember, the capital improvement plan for the sewer plant is in 2 phases. Phase 2. Here is the phase 1 stuff, which we're going to start on right away. Phase 2 would start probably in 2030, but it's still a critical component. In March of 2020, the plan phase 1 was 7.2 million. In October last fall, it jumped up to 9.2, and we gave you a heads up. Now it's 12.475. Now it's not just because costs have gone. We've actually moved projects around. Projects that were in phase 2, because of the timing and the engineering, had to be moved up. So that's a component of it. So don't think that it's just inflation's eating our lunch here. So if you've got any questions on the projects, Kevin's got everything here. The real key that has saved our bacon, I'm telling you, I was sweating bullets when I saw that 12.2 a couple of months ago, is the ARPA money that you're getting. And you should just be doing backflips. What we're going to get just on the ARPA money is 3 projects that are going to total $4.9 million. That's the Headworks and the Grit Chamber, the Smith Road Pump Station, the Class A biosolids dryer. We are proposing to get cracking on that stuff right away. The rate forecast is predicated on 2 things. Costs, of course, the timing of costs. We want to avoid those rate spikes. So if we can get these projects funded with ARPA grant money and get them moving, that'll help us on our rate profile that we're going to talk about in a second. And I know you're all familiar with this ARPA money, and you've been working hard on it. Congratulations, by the way. You did well.
Just to clarify too, when we say ARPA money, we're talking about the Betsy money, not necessarily the.
Yeah, this is House Bill 5060.
Talking about.
Is that what it was?
5006.
56. Yeah, that's when the legislator just made it rain. I mean, yeah. And I've got some of my cities across the state have really made really good progress on this. Astoria, they're going to basically build their entire new wastewater treatment system with money. So everybody's done well, and you're very fortunate. Go ahead. So here's the answer. With the ARPA grant support, we're forecasting to continue to be on a 7% rate profile. We've been bouncing around up and down. This is predicated on a 10-year forecast horizon. So we're talking, and you're already on this glide path, by the way. This is nothing new. Just saying that because you got the ARPA money and our costs went up for phase 1, all kind of washed out with one exception. Was the earlier forecast was predicated on a 15-year loan with the DEQ, Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund. Need to make that 20 years. If you're wedded to a 15-year loan for some reason, then that rate profile is going to go up to almost 9.5%. Standard DEQ SRF loan is 20 years. You would be anomalous at 15, but you can't do that. So we're proposing to just use that key here, the dependent variable as it was is 7%. That's what you want to stay on. In order to make that happen, we got to have ARPA money and we got to have a 20-year loan. So now here is the nuts and the bolts of it. We have the current, not yet adopted, but proposed budget as our start year, and that's already taken into account. First 7% increase that we're talking about, staying on your glide path, would be July 1, 2022. Spend the ARPA money first. Want to use that ARPA money before we start stepping on any loan money, because once we start stepping on the loan, you got to start paying interest, principal and interest payment. So we'll talk about why that's going to be important going on. We're going to borrow about $8.5 million under the already approved DEQ SRF loan. I think it was 2019. Right now, the cash flow forecast indicates we're going to start stepping on that loan in 2024. To spend the ARPA money first. And then we're going to borrow about another 10 million in 2030. And I have no idea how good that number is in 2030. Even with inflation and everything else and the changing nature of the project, you think it's going to be 10 million. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more. Doubt if it's going to be less. And then the sewer fund balance never goes below 1.5 million. We need to have a fund reserve balance for your rainy day on the utility side. So that's the nuts and the bolts of it. Here are the next steps. We need staff, and they are working. Huel's working on this right now, is working with Oregon Business. They are the keeper of the purse strings for these ARPA loans. And there's going to be probably a raft of things coming to your attention for signature, documents, agreements with the state of Oregon to get the money. Sign them. Just sign them. Take the money. City Council, we need you to approve the wastewater department budget with your budget cycle. Your budget meetings are 2 weeks? Next week?
So next month.
Next month. Stay the course. We don't anticipate any changes from the proposed, but if there are any significant changes from the proposed budget, up or down, we need to remodel that. Start the engineering design for the ARPA grant funded projects. I would think, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but the pump station is pretty off the shelf kind of stuff. The biosolids dryer project, that's just pretty much skid mounted machine, isn't it?
Yes, the dryer and Smith Road are underway. Phase one, bigger portion of the project is about 60% in engineering. Is on schedule to bid in the fall. The ground in spring.
I'm just kind of gun shy about ARPA grant money. They say it's just use it or lose it. So let's use it. Really what I'm saying to do. And then the other big project was the first.
Headworks.
The Headworks. Where are we on design on?
That's all part of the 60%.
All part of the 60% of it. Coordinate with the DEQ program. Those folks, you were approved for that loan in 2019 when we worked on that. And that's not a problem because there's no drop dead. The money is there. It's been earmarked, so don't worry that we haven't spent it yet.
We've also been in direct communication with them. They know exactly what's happening and are fully on board with planning.
That's one of the best programs the state or the EPA and the states have ever done. I mean, they have cleaned the waters of the United States with that program. Go ahead, Huel. And then you're going to have to approve the wastewater treatment facility plan amendment. I don't know how you go through adoption on that, but the DEQ will not allow you to step on that money, that loan, until you've got an approved plan amendment. It's sort of like belt and braces, and you'll take care of that. Don't worry about it. Then the last thing here is ARPA grants. They were just absolutely critical to this whole plan. If we would not got that $4.9 million, I'd be here with my hat in my hand saying we need about 16, 17% rate increases. Yeah, that's how important those grants were. Borrowing is going to be integral. It's part of the business plan, but you've known that. We've talked about that for the last 3 years for sure. We're gonna have a DQ, Clean Water State revolving loan for phase one and another one for phase two. And then, once again, the adoption of the facilities plan amendment. And that's really it. So it's good news. We're gonna stay the course.
Facility plan has already been approved. There's the change of the screw press that was added. That's on their desk right now.
Kevin, I'm just curious, what was so important from phase two that it needed to move to phase one, or how did this all, did it have to do with money or just what we needed, or?
If you remember, a while back, we discovered that there was failure of the liner of our
Yes.
big aeration basin.
Mhm.
And this past summer, we had a project to switch ponds around. And that took longer than we thought, but as of March, we were 100% flowing into a new aeration basin. We used one of our older sludge ponds, so we're about a third of the size. But we can see where we had the failure just this week. We're about totally pumped down in that basin, or the old basin. On track. That was a switch of the clarifier versus aeration basin. That's what
Yeah.
switched. So the headworks is all going to be in that same location as the aeration basin. So we had to drain that thing anyway. So that it works out.
Thank you for reminding us of that scenario. Thank you.
Mayor. In regards to phase one and phase two utilization of the DEQ loan, are they the same loan, or would we be going out for a secondary loan from the DEQ? Because if I remember right, that there was kind of a longevity period of the loan that we could come to and access those funds as needed to kind of fulfill the work and projects to get on there. But I didn't hear of phase two being an additional loan. Can you clarify, or if it's from the same?
It will be a new loan. And how these loans work is they're really friendly to you folks. Think of it as a secured line of credit. And the nice thing is, as you start building the project, you step on the line of credit. The line of credit pays for the projects as they go down. When you're done with the project and it's completed, then it flips into a term loan, 20-year loan. So that's how that works, and it's very, very helpful and very friendly to you folks. And you've had them in the past, so the city's had experience with them. There will be a second loan for the phase two project.
The timeline that we think phase two, when we would reach that milestone to move into
2030.
something to mark down, Alex. Thank you for the explanation. I do have a follow-up.
Go ahead.
Kevin, is there anything red flags along the way that we should be mindful of so that we can prepare for any changes? I mean, I think that there's a lot of moving parts that go along with a large project of this size. We know that material inflation and all of those things are impacting the overall cost. No one has a crystal ball. I also understand that, but from your experiences, is there anything that council and staff should be aware of moving forward?
Well, the plant now is 30 years old. Majority of that stuff, we've had some other smaller upgrades, 2010. That equipment is old, and we're replacing a lot of things. So if a certain pump needs to be replaced, but it's in the first phase, time is of the essence. We don't waste money just to replace it again in a few years. So just have to keep moving.
We're still kind of in the low-hanging fruit phase of let's just get where we need to be at least.
We just can't slow down, especially with transitioning to the smaller pond. So it performs totally different than it did before, and we're still getting it dialed in, but confident we'll be there. And
I appreciate the transparency and honesty in your response. Thank you.
So the biggest decision council needs to make then is whether to accept the 20-year loan versus the 15 to stabilize rates at 7%.
Oh, right.
That's for something the council to think about. Look forward. You said 9.5 to 10%. 15-year loan, 7%. So it's about rates at this time.
Think of it conversely, if, in order for you to stay on the 7% per year rate profile that we've talked about for a while, you gotta go to a 20-year. If not, you're gonna go to 9.5, 10%. Once again, the 20-year loan is the standard vanilla product that the DEQ offers. They, for stretched communities, they'll go out 30 years. Really don't very often do 15-year loans, construction projects.
Any other questions?
We'll circle back with you whenever we get new information and, dial it back in. And like I said, if anything changes on the budget, we'll run it through the model again, and keep you up to date.
Will there be formal action coming before the council on change on the loan or?
I'd want to double check. What I don't recall correctly is whether or not we actually formalize the loan as a 15-year amortization through their paperwork, or if it's 20 years on their end, but we actually decided simply to make payments to bill 15 years. So I'd actually have to go back and look, but we may actually,
Remember that.
it may actually be in place that it's 20-year. We were just going to pay it off in 15.
Once again, that's how the DEQ does it.
Right. And so,
So you chose to get faster.
correct.
And I've even had communities where in the middle of a loan, they'll refinance the loan for you to a different term.
In
City-
2009, they put loan papers in, they said, whoa, 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 wait a minute. There's federal dollars coming.
Yeah, and then,
We got federal dollars instead.
Yeah.
Forgivable loan. Sorry.
and by the way, that loan that you got, I'll back up the truck for another one of those. Borrow $1, they forgive 50 cents, and the balance is charged at 0% interest. Do that all day long.
I will too.
Sure.
And that may be coming back. I just wanted to, I'll get out of your hair pretty quick here, but they passed the infrastructure, the Federal Infrastructure Act, and the amount of money that's earmarked for wastewater is going to go through Clean Water State Revolving Loan Program, and it's going to be, we think, they haven't promulgated the rules yet, but we think it's going to be like the ARRA, American Resource and Recovery Act, ARRA loans in 2008.
Obama, I call them Obama bucks.
Obama bucks.
Those are Obama bucks. These are Biden bucks.
Right, these are Biden bucks. Think of it that way. We don't know that, but we were also told from Washington that this money is going to be doled out based on need. And usually what that means is poorer communities are first in line.
Fine again.
Yeah, so you're a wealthy community by median household income standards. So I wouldn't, I think you're gonna, if there is money, you're not gonna be first in line.
Sad is that because of how we do taxes for cities, you can have a wealthy community not translate into government resources.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Every general fund in Oregon is designed to go broke
right now, especially with inflation,
since Measure 5
well, 49.50, we're
and 50.
at 3%.
Yeah.
All right,
Said
guys.
so. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hey,
We're geeking out on you. All right,
Where's that gavel?
we're done. Thanks.
it's not the one I wanted. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you, Mr. Turner. Thank you, Mr. Whitehouse. We wait until 6:30 for the next group, or is that just?
It's just two gentlemen right here, so.
I'll just send the link to the school board and say, watch this.
You guys.
See you later.
Mayor and council, thank you for having me here tonight to talk about construction excise taxes. So it's been obviously a topic of conversation for the last 9 months to a year. The school district is essentially looking to raise rates and change how much they are assessing. And there have been some questions raised about the way these taxes are assessed and kind of what the genesis of where we are is now and where things are at. So essentially, the construction excise tax is allowed through ORS 320. It basically sets out all the rules, and it is not very clear. And rules are, as you've heard. And it is also true that they can only be used for capital improvements or to pay back capital improvement debt, which is another point of contention, as you've heard, which is that we haven't been able to, as the collectors, we haven't been able to verify that the funds raised over the last years have actually been used in the ways they're supposed to. So the taxes are assessed by schools but collected by municipalities. In our case, it's through our permitting process. When new construction goes in, that would result in either a new structure or additional square footage, whether that's residential, commercial, industrial. There's a small portion of that permit fee is a tax. And we essentially take that money. Pass it to the school. The ORS also limits the rate increases. So those are capped at certain percentages. Those are increased yearly. They're published yearly. There are actual very stringent limits to how those tax rates increase. Which goes back to another, which is the amount that the district is proposing to increase taxes. And
Can I clarify that?
yes, please.
They're requesting that we funnel more through to them, that the percentage that we give them is higher. Not that they, yeah, okay.
So I'm not clear what those percentages are. I was not privy to that information. My understanding from previous work sessions.
And then just for clarification, when you say that the school district is coming to us saying, by way of the city, this money is funneling through you, we'd like to receive a higher percentage. And at this point, our answer has been no, because what can't they provide?
The verification that that money's been used, well, among other things, I shouldn't answer. What I've heard from work sessions is that there's no verification of where those funds have gone.
So a paper trail of how they've used the funds in the past. Okay.
I've been told that we're not willing to provide.
I'll just say that again. They're not willing to provide
The audit.
audit.
Could I clarify?
Yeah.
Right. The initial request that I got was for an amount that exceeded the maximum proposed. So I got the request. It seemed like a significant increase. So I went to the Department of Revenue's website in order to determine what the maximum amount was. Saw that it exceeded the maximum amount. The statute specifies how they can, pass it. They hadn't done that, and so I reached back out to them and said, this exceeds the maximum amount allowed under state law. By the way, you do this resolution. And then those things were obvious. And then I reached out to Alex and I said, when was the last facilities improvement? And so we had in our records that the last facilities improvement plan was 2008.
From the school district.
From the school district.
Mhm.
So I responded back and said, that the most recent plan we have is 2008, and the response was they're good for 10 years. And my thought was that we were at this point in 2021, and that would have been good until like 18. So I then just said, and by the way, could you provide kind of an accounting, because the city council likes to verify things for themselves and likes to explain to the public, particularly when monies are going to go somewhere, that what the benefit of that is for the public. Because obviously when people are paying this when a new house is built or when a business. So he said it was part of the audit. And so I just replied and said, could you give me a site? And he said it was pass-through funds and suggested I could file a public records request.
Peter, without, you don't have to say the name or you can, but when you're referring to he, what is the position in the school district you're referring to?
Finance. Yeah. So again, I just want, when I'm queuing something up for you guys, I want it just to be like as transparent as possible and you have all the information in one packet. Because where things don't go well is when information's coming in piecemeal. And that's just my observation. That's not unique to you as a city council, but you in particular as a city council really like to independently verify things. Notice. So if I'm going to anyone, that's what I'm going to ask for. I mean, I think there's an acknowledgement, and it's part of this packet, that the facilities improvement plan hasn't changed since 2008, and they're good for 10 years. So I think there are two ways to look at it. A more aggressive approach would be, should we even be collecting this at all if the facility plan is more than 10 years old? You know, the other piece would be, should we change the material terms such as a increase if we don't have a facilities improvement plan, long-term facilities improvement plan that is still live, I'm going to say. And the other thing is too, if you look at this program, part of the intent was conversations between the jurisdiction and the school district, because I think there's a realization between that school district facilities don't just benefit the school district, they also facilitate the city. And so they kind of wanted people to be on the same page. That's how it read to me. So that's what I would have hoped would have happened. You know, in this packet is a request for proposals to do a new facility improvement plan. This issue was flagged in 2018, so it would have been great if at that point the school district went out and if the city had been able to participate in that time. That didn't happen. And so, you know, I've let the school district know I'm really uncomfortable doing a significant increase in our CET without a long-term facilities improvement plan that is in place. And I suspect that you as a council would want a full accounting of all the funds that have been collected, similar to what we could do with our gas tax. They're dedicated funds that can only be used for certain things. So, you know, if they went to Alex in our finance department, we could say, here are the projects, here's how much they cost. Here are the gas tax funds that were used versus what have you. I mean, that's just what we would do. So, you know, I wish this had been smoother, but is what it is. And I think we're at kind of a decision point because they really want us to increase the thing. They're saying, well, we're about to go out for this. That's kind of my recollection of last year.
So,
It's this year.
question,
Last year they went out.
Peter,
Yeah.
is there anything in our IGA or in state law that requires school district to provide accounting for those funds?
You know, I think that the problem with these statutes is they're very ambiguous, right? And so they're possible, there are multiple possible ways of interpreting them. I would say that we are collecting this, and I think that implicit in that would be we know that it's being used for the proper purpose, just like our gas tax is. And so I would hope that they would just provide that to us on an annual basis, because frankly, then everybody can go out to the community and look how these funds are being utilized and look how this is helping our kids and helping our schools. And so we're not talking about an insignificant amount of money.
So just for me, I mean, transparency's sake, it's odd that the school district is putting up barriers to seeing how this money's being spent. A, it's odd. And B, if they're going to want to increase, to me, it feels like that's got to go into the agreement, that there's an annual accounting of the money that's just exchanged.
I mean, at the very least, I think we needed a new agreement. This agreement was done right before their long-term facility improvement plan was going to sunset. And you know, I think with the benefit of hindsight, there's probably some stuff we want in there that I didn't plan. And but I think that transparency is so important to the community that I think that for the past couple of years in particular. You know, it's just really important to have that in all of our, that people are able to verify information. That will be my legal best practices advice.
I would just also hope, and I don't know if this needs to be in writing, that at the very least, if there is a request by us to see these at any point in time, that those are freely handed over to us. So not only is there an expectation that on a yearly basis they are submitting something, but if there's some sort of, we want our eye on something, or we just have a question, that those documents would be readily available at all times to us.
Anytime there's dedicated funds that have to be used for specific purposes, whether it's a transient lodging tax or whether it's a gas tax, those funds need to be segregated, and it's generally much easier to pull those courts than something else. Yeah, I mean,
Swear. Peter, can we walk through, it's on page 12, Exhibit A. It says ORS 32170 says restriction on construction tax imposed by school district. It says a school district as defined by ORS 330.005 may impose a construction tax. So the school district unilaterally can impose the construction tax?
so if you go through this entire chapter, it goes back and forth as to the level that the city is involved in. And there's one argument that would be, yeah, they can take unilateral action. I think then the question would be, again, if you look through the rest of this chapter, it's the city's involved, and we have to adopt our own ordinance. If you look at 320.192, governing body of a city or county may impose the construction tax by adoption of an ordinance or resolution that conforms to the requirements of this section. OS 321.95.
Okay, second part of my question might help with your response. So having not read 330.005, 321.70, and 321.95, it appears that they can impose a construction tax unilaterally. But then if you get down to subsection 2 of the ORS, which is 321.70, it says constructions tax may be imposed by a school district, must be collected subject to yada yada by a local government. So where's the definition of local government? Why can't they collect it themselves? Why is it passing through us? I guess is my question.
Well, I think because we're the ones that actually would collect the fees on it. But again, in 320.192, it says may impose. And so the problem is we've got some sections that would read it as they have this unilateral authority. There's other sections that say that we have discretion as to whether to impose it or not. There are other sections where it seems like we're all working together. So, I mean, this is one of those instances where, maybe an AG opinion would be helpful. Those are hard to get.
Well, I think in summary, it's from what I'm hearing, we just want transparency on the accounting of the funds used unless there's an alternative way that doesn't involve passing these funds through us.
I think you'd want an updated long-range facilities improvement plan. I think you'd want to be part of those conversations. My guess is people in the community would be as well. Then we'd want to make sure that everything was being done as transparently as possible, so that if you're paying, this is not inconsequential. If you're thinking about a $400,000 house, how much is collected on this?
Mhm.
This is thousands of dollars, and that amount gets passed on to the end buyer. That's just the reality of how this works.
Well, to my point, I'm just trying to wrap my head around how a school district can get other taxes directly, but for some reason this has to run through us.
Well, I think it's because what they're wanting is that it's the agency actually issuing the permit. That's where the actual tax is paid. And so since we are the body doing that,
So it's not
Here.
running. Okay, that makes
right. So when we issue the permits, that's when they actually have to pay the tax. That's why we're collecting it and then passing it through.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Just a couple of, well, one follow-up, I guess, question is, who would be the auditing group for that money? I mean, so is there a separate auditor by the state that audits the school district for those funds, or would that technically fall on our part because the money's passing through us?
It doesn't specify. It wouldn't be the state. It would probably be the school board that would be looking at the use of these funds. But again, I don't see why there couldn't be multiple sets of eyes on it because there are multiple jurisdictions involved. And same thing, I mean, some of these, the county's collecting this too. Multnomah County's collecting this too. Anyone in the school district where someone's building something, it's being collected. So it's not just, these numbers represent the city of Scappoose. They don't represent the total numbers that the school district has received. And as far as I know, because I think I was told this, we were the only city that pushed back, or we were the only jurisdiction that pushed back. And so, I said to Alex, Groundhog Day,
Yeah.
you know,
Kind of known to,
how is it my fault? But,
yeah.
that's as I understand.
Yeah, I agree. Visibility, especially when we're accountable for where money's going, I think.
My thought is, obviously, this applies to all properties within the district and outside the city, they go through the bidding process. So, just seems to me that, see a reason why they wouldn't be more open about accounting and where the money's going. Not questioning them in any way and how they're spending their money, but it just seems like it should be something they would want to share with us more than their arm or do something that would seem this them like we're really pushing the envelope, so to speak. Like, just thinking that why they're being
Right, and I'm not suggesting at all that anything untoward has happened, and I did not make the request in that spirit at all. I made the request just having worked with you as a council and knowing the level of information you like to see when making a decision, and I err on the side of more, because there are people that like to really dig into the data, and there are members of the community that like to really dig into the data too. So, you know.
I understand the long-term facilities plan because they don't have one. I mean, it's been out for a long time. There's one that's not current, but you see, and that is a big problem for the Scappoose School District. When I'm reading, they're reaching some. We're already in that second phase of what we're talking about. Should be doing something. Should be doing something. Schools and. But I know they should be required to get us something. It's just a document stating that and it's being updated as possible. At this point, it's still at least a year away, I would say, right? Am I correct if I'm understanding this?
New facilities.
Yeah.
When I asked them, they told me they were starting work May. They did not tell me when they intended to wrap that up. Even if they did, we soft adopted similar to you. So
They need our approval, resolution of the city to increase their rates. Because the resolution sets what we're collecting.
Right, so I read it as they can impose the tax, but then if you look at section 192, it says the city may.
But I look at our own resolution for
Right.
2016 that outlines exactly what we'll collect. But without us passing a new resolution, our staff won't collect anything higher than this because council's authorized.
Right,
It's really,
we want to be good neighbors to the school district, and we want a cooperative relationship with them, but we also, I mean, there are statutes that are on point here, and we follow the law.
Mr. Mayor. Speaking on following the law, what potential legal liabilities or repercussions could the city face by not allowing for this to move forward would the school district have an opportunity to take legal action against us?
I mean, anybody can sue anybody.
Sure,
but,
sure.
I mean, we have them acknowledging in writing that the facility improvement plan is only good for 10 years, and it's more than 10.
I mean, the facilities plan about the school that's already been built. The school that was torn down to build the new school.
No, it also includes like,
That's the major spending. It's got second steps, yeah.
So then do we need to propose kind of our expectations of what the school district will deliver to city council or city staff before that we would create a resolution to increase the percentage of the administrative fee or tax collected for them?
I mean, you can, I guess we were looking just for some guidance to make sure that we were kind of walking down the right path. This had come up. I had said we don't have a plan. You guys haven't given us a plan, all of that. Alex and I had looked, we had looked at the existing agreement, felt like we were on pretty strong, pretty firm footing. Then they came back again and are like, well, we're going to adopt one. And it's like, no, like,
you
Right.
can't do it without us.
Yeah, I think for us, the real, probably number one and primary concern was that they didn't have an updated facilities plan, which seemed like a very kind of your bright line thing that they would need. I've been hearing for quite some time that they had collected some grant funds and we're going to be working on that. So I think from our perspective, we had thought that was going to be coming shortly and that we could revisit that discussion. We didn't necessarily suspect or think that this was going to come back up before that plan was completed. And so that's the primary point we've pushed back on is that that plan has not been updated. So I think from our perspective, that's really the number one thing we were hoping to see. I think the discussion of seeing what they had spent the funds on, I don't know that there was anything actually talked about in the IGA that would have required that in any way. Actually, the IGA was more focused on us providing documentation of how we were passing the funds over to them. But I do think that, for transparency's sake, it might be, at least good to understand the money's being spent on, even if it's just to show that it's doing good things for the community. I mean,
so we can show builders when they're
Right,
permit.
but
These are the sort
this
of
is
things
why
that
you're
go,
paying this.
because
We need to create a resolution or an amendment to the IGA to include language like that moving forward. And then also including an up-to-date facilities plan for when the school district wants to come and ask for an increase moving forward.
I mean, I think, yeah, when we revisit this agreement, it's going to be really prescriptive as far as what everyone's expectations are and what everyone's going to provide. Because the statutes are so ambiguous, we really need all our agreements to be super clear and prescriptive,
Mr. Mayor.
in my opinion.
So on that note, it seems like this is pretty clear. It's page 13. It's 32179. It's the bottom highlighted paragraph. It says 32179 school district resolutions, collections, requirements. A school district imposing a construction tax shall impose the tax by a resolution adopted by the district board of the school district. The resolution shall state the rate of the tax subject to ORS 32176. But 2 is kind of interesting. It tells a little bit more. Prior to collecting a construction tax, the school district shall enter into an intergovernmental agreement with each local government, local service district, special government body, state agency, or state official collecting tax that includes, and then it goes on to list what those requirements are.
I think that's the fair position line basically that allows us to. Sorry. No, so I think that's kind of the line that allows us to kind of really put our say into it, is that secondary line, because it does say that the school district has the right to impose the tax and set the rate with guidance, but it does say they have to enter into an IGA with us.
But I'm not sure if even during their school board meetings, if their board members are passing, if this is coming in front of them across their desk and that it seems to, yeah.
The first thing that we got, it hadn't been passed by resolution. So
It
No, I-
hadn't.
They had not.
Yeah.
So my response was this exceeds the maximum amount that the state the state allows. It needed to have been passed by resolution and it was not. And could you give me a copy of the up-to-date facility improvement plan? And that's how it all started.
Mr. Mayor? So for our interest, city council, is there a reason at this point for us to get an AG opinion? And if so, how long does that normally take?
So the AG's, the AG's office, you have to get a request from either a senator or a representative to get an AG's opinion at this point. Cities can't do it. The last one I requested was in summer of last year and it has not yet been received. So it has not been a fast process.
I just wonder if we shouldn't talk with the county and see what their feelings on this are, if we're like on this, because they're in the same position we are. And does their attorney have a similar opinion we have? And what does it matter?
My understanding is that other jurisdictions just didn't ask the question. So I think that if we're talking about legal risk, probably people are collecting more than tax. That's some risk. But I have not been in touch with the county council that's handled it. I don't know.
Just moving forward, I would be very interested to have some more detailed language in our agreement and having you draft something up and we look at that. So on our end, we're making sure that our expectations are being met at the minimum. And then, again, I will share the link to this with the school board, because one person's listening. This obviously involves them and the business that they do. I know that the school district budgeting committee is going to start meeting in May. Or no, I think it's maybe even within the next couple weeks. Anyways, so that this is all valid information for them to ask questions, and when they're looking at their budget and they see construction excise tax and where that money is going. So I'd rather do our due diligence on our end, and then if those requirements aren't met, then there isn't a discussion on the table, in my opinion.
I doubt that they're even aware of any of this.
Oh, I would agree with that, perhaps, maybe. I don't know.
Well, on that note, I think that we try to work with them and get them, if any help that we can offer them, that we offer them that help, and hopefully we can get an IGA that's very clear and sets forth clear expectations.
Yeah, I think definitely transparency is going to be key. And if we can, push that envelope a little bit and say, hey, that's what we're looking for. This is what we want. We need transparency because we need to explain ourselves. I push as far as I can.
Both in the business of serving people, so I think at the root of it all, we're not trying to micromanage. We're just
I mean, I look at the CT like these we collect. I look at them more like, the SDCs. That they can only be spent on certain things. This is spelled out. Because schools didn't have SDCs, this law was passed to give them a route to collect road used for those specific purposes, much like water, sewer, road, SDC, park, SDC.
I mean, I think that is 100% the spirit in which this legislation is.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're done with the work sessions. We'll come back in about 10 minutes to regular session. My boy took classes over. And, yeah, Lori. Phenomenal. Ready? All right. Go ahead and call tonight's meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. Okay, roll call. All members of council are present, including whoever 5 of you will be chosen. So we're all present. Okay, do I have approval of tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Having a motion to approve the agenda, do I have a second?
Second.